Picture this. It is late at night in San Francisco, and inside OpenAI, the company that turned ChatGPT into a verb, every screen lights up with the same two words: code red. Not a routine update, not a roadmap tweak, a full-blown crisis mode, ordering almost every team to drop what they are doing and rush to save a product that suddenly looks vulnerable. The AI king just pulled the fire alarm on itself, and the question is, what went so wrong that ChatGPT now needs emergency surgery? Sam Altman's internal memo, leaked to the press, did not sound like a pep talk. It ordered OpenAI onto a wartime footing, forcing teams to reassign headcount, pause launches, and justify any work that did not directly make ChatGPT faster, more reliable, or harder to quit. Splashy projects like autonomous AI agents, a real-time pulse feed of trending prompts, and early ad experiments were shoved to the back of the line. But here is the twist. This is not OpenAI attacking, like in 2022. This is OpenAI playing defense. To understand why this matters, you have to see what code red actually changes inside the building. Overnight, OpenAI turns into a triage unit. Engineers are yanked off experimental side quests and slammed onto three brutal metrics: speed, reliability, and personalization. If ChatGPT does not feel instant, stable, and tailored to you, executives now treat that as a bug, not a missing feature. And in a minute, you will see how that connects directly to people quietly leaving for Google's Gemini and Anthropic. Start with speed. Latency is the easiest thing users feel and the hardest thing to fake. Internally, OpenAI is chasing sub-second responses even during peak traffic, pouring what could become hundreds of billions of dollars into infrastructure over the next decade. Reliability comes next. Fewer model is at capacity errors, fewer silent failures, and consistent behavior whether you use the web app, the phone app, or the programming interface. The message is simple. If ChatGPT hesitates or flakes, that is now treated like the app crashing on launch. Then comes the wild card: personalization. OpenAI wants ChatGPT to feel like a tool you trained, not a generic chatbot, remembering your writing style, recurring tasks, and preferences across sessions. But it has to do that without turning into a privacy nightmare. That means safer long-term memory, smarter context handling, and subtle interface nudges that make it feel like the system knows you without creeping you out. But here is the part nobody expected. One of the biggest fires they are fighting is not about what ChatGPT says, it is about what it refuses to say. You have probably seen the screenshots. Someone asks a harmless question about politics or a basic coding task, or even a cooking tip, and ChatGPT responds with, "I cannot help with that." Overzealous safety filters turned false positives into daily frustration. Every unnecessary refusal pushes users to try Gemini or Anthropic instead. Inside OpenAI, engineers now treat those over refusals as product defects on par with crashes. The new goal is sharp: keep hard lines on abuse and disinformation while dramatically shrinking the "sorry, I cannot do that" surface area. Images are back in the spotlight too. OpenAI's DALL-E once defined AI art for the mainstream, but Google's Gemini and tools like Midjourney have chipped away at that lead. Code Red pushes image generation and editing up the priority stack, aiming to make them feel like native parts of ChatGPT, not a bolted-on demo. Imagine describing a slide deck, a logo tweak, or a product mockup, then refining it in seconds without leaving the chat. If OpenAI pulls that off, it keeps you inside its ecosystem instead of jumping to a rival tab. Under all of this is a deeper fear: losing the story. For a while, OpenAI owned the narrative. But ghosts from Google's past are suddenly back? Remember, in 2017, Google and DeepMind published Attention Is All You Need, the paper that invented the transformer architecture. That design became the backbone of every modern large language model, from GPT-4 to Gemini and Claude. On paper, Google had the talent, the data, and the data centers to win this race before it even started. So how did OpenAI steal the crown in the first place? The answer is not just about algorithms. It is about courage and timing. Google spent years keeping its most powerful conversational systems behind layers of safety reviews and brand risk meetings. Demos like Duplex wowed on stage, then vanished into limited pilots. OpenAI did the opposite. In November 2022, it wrapped a chat interface around a fine-tuned GPT model and simply shipped it. ChatGPT crossed 1 million users in 5 days and roughly 100 million in 2 months. Generative AI jumped from research papers to your browser overnight. That launch did more than impress nerds. It created a new product category in your mind, the general purpose AI assistant that is always on, conversational, cheap, and good enough for real work. Google, which had invented the transformer and quietly shipped AI across search, photos, and translate, suddenly looked slow and cautious. By December 2022, Google executives were the ones declaring code red, calling back Larry Page and Sergey Brin for emergency strategy sessions. But here's the pattern break. 2 years later, the roles have flipped. OpenAI's own house has been shaking. In November 2023, its board abruptly fired Sam Altman, accusing him of not being consistently candid, and installed Mira Murati as interim chief executive. Within days, more than 700 of about 770 employees signed a letter threatening to follow Altman to Microsoft. Microsoft's Satya Nadella publicly welcomed him, essentially daring the nonprofit board to hold its line. Under enormous pressure, the board folded, reinstated Altman, and reshaped itself. The coup was reversed, but the trust damage was permanent. That chaos accelerated a slow brain drain. Co-founder and chief scientist Ilya Sutskever, once the moral and technical center of the lab, stepped back and then left to start a new safety-focused group. Star researcher Andrej Karpathy returned to OpenAI, then left again within a year. Mira Murati exited too. Alongside them, policy leads, safety researchers, and infrastructure engineers quietly moved to rivals or founded their own shops. Innovation is not just about graphics cards and cash. It depends on the tight feedback loop between bold research, careful safety, and fast productization. And that loop at OpenAI started to fray. While OpenAI wrestled with governance drama, Google regrouped. Its long-promised revenge arrived with Gemini, especially the third-generation models that stopped looking like science projects and started looking like product juggernauts. On reasoning and coding benchmarks like MMLU GSM8K and HumanEval, independent tests showed Gemini edging out OpenAI's best models by several percentage points, especially on multi-step logic and tool use. Enterprise buyers noticed. For companies already paying for Google Workspace or running on Google Cloud, switching their default assistant to Gemini became a procurement checkbox, not a moonshot bet. Then came the social proof moment. Salesforce chief executive Mark Benioff publicly announced he was moving off ChatGPT and standardizing on Gemini across Salesforce. That was not just a tweet. It was a signal to chief information officers everywhere that it was now career safe to bet on Google's stack instead of OpenAI's interfaces. Social feeds filled with side-by-side screenshots of Gemini acing complex spreadsheet formulas, legal drafts, and code refactors that ChatGPT either fumbled or refused. This is where code red becomes personal. It changes which tools you see at work and which skills employers expect you to have. Here is the important twist. This AI race is not a tidy two-player duel. While Google and OpenAI trade headlines, Anthropic quietly wins over developers who care about stability and fewer refusals. XAI chases a different crowd. Open source models keep getting better. Code Red is OpenAI admitting that its lead is no longer obvious and that user loyalty is fragile. If ChatGPT feels slower, dumber, or more skittish than the alternatives, people will not hesitate to switch. And that means your day-to-day tools, from coding copilots to office assistants, could change faster than you think. So what does this crisis really reveal? It shows that the era of easy hype is over. Users now judge AI tools on brutal, practical terms. How fast are you? How often do you fail? How much do you refuse? And how well do you fit into my workflow? OpenAI's Code Red is a bet that by stripping away distractions like ads, experimental agents, and flashy feeds, and by doubling down on speed, reliability, personalization, and images, it can make ChatGPT feel undeniably better again. The next few months of updates you see are not random. They are the visible scars of this internal triage. For you, the stakes are simple but huge. The assistant you rely on to write emails, debug code, summarize documents, or brainstorm ideas might be different a year from now. Your employer might standardize on Gemini or Anthropic, or stay with OpenAI depending on who wins this sprint. And the norms we set now about safety, refusals, privacy, and memory will shape how comfortable you feel living with these systems in your pocket and on your desk. The question is not just who wins the AI race, it is what rules we all end up living under. If you want to stay ahead of that shift, you need to watch what Code Red produces, not just the headlines about it. Are your ChatGPT responses getting faster and less flaky? Are refusals dropping for harmless questions? Do image tools feel more deeply integrated? And are Google, Anthropic, and others quietly becoming the default in your workplace? I will be tracking those changes as they roll out. So if you want a part two, breaking down who is actually pulling ahead and what tools you should learn next, tell me in the comments and hit subscribe so you do not miss it.